Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels, and we are going to be going straight back to Down the Rabbit Hole. But first, give me a moment. I got to adjust something, technical difficulties. Again. There we go. Alright, so, real quick, in regards to our description box, everything that we are covering throughout the entirety of the Down the Rabbit Hole series, you're going to be finding right there in the description box, right along with what we are getting started with today. We are going to be going through the General Medical Council. They are the governing body out in the UK when it comes to medical professional practitioners. This is in regards to that particular study that really sparked a renewal of the anti-vax movement in the country, really kicked off in the late 90s and hardcore went into the early 2000s to the cluster of the situation we've got right now. So, if you want to go ahead and do some deep diving on your own time, those links are up there. You're definitely encouraged to do so. Trigger warnings. We do have this channel marked not for kids for a reason. First of all, I very much use a whole lot of profanity. And also, some of the subjects that we cover on this channel, excuse me, are relatively dark. So if your child's 16 and younger and they are watching this, parental supervision is very much advised. Now, a little bit of a longer political disclaimer. If you are gung-ho MAGA, gung-ho MAHA, gung-ho Democrat, or gung-ho anti-vaxxer, where we do welcome healthy debate on this channel, what we don't support is ad hominem attacks, digs at any individual's family whatsoever. We do not tolerate any type of just out and out personal insults or attacking anyone's character. We do not tolerate out and out lies. Just conduct yourself in a way that is becoming of an individual who would like to have a debate in good faith. And you are more than welcome to the comment section. But if you're looking for a fight, this is not the place for it. There's plenty of other spaces you can go ahead and join if that's what you want to do. But we are here to cover facts. We are here to inform on how we are currently stuck in the absolute horrific mess we currently are in regards to who is now our public health secretary and how in the name of God this even happened. So, just wanted to get that out of the way. Also, as you can tell, allergies. I live in Missouri. Send help. Send all the help. Alright? Okay, so this is the General Medical Council, also known as Regulating Doctors, Ensuring Good Medical Practice. This case is being considered by a fitness to practice panel applying the General Medical Council's Preliminary Proceedings Committee and Professional Conduct Committee Procedure Rules 1988. So, this is the conclusion in regards to the inquiry that was done in regards to Dr. Andrew Wakefield, as well as some of the other doctors that participated in that very infamous study. So we're going to be going through this, and then they have another one on the other doctor bar that we're going to go through, and then we're going to be going into other places such as, much to my annoyance, Jenny McCarthy, and how she helped usher and bring in and normalize the anti-vax insanity. And not just that, but help revive and restart a brand new era of snake oil salesmen. And yeah, when I tell you snake oil cures, folks, there's a reason why I call this series Down the Rabbit Hole, okay? We're going to be going over all of that good stuff, and then we're going to deep dive into the troubled mind of RFK Jr., who he's been allies with, and where this all came from, okay? Okay. Alright, so this was back in 2010. Determination on Serious Professional Misconduct, SPM, and Sanction. The panel has already given its findings on the facts, and its reasons for determining that the facts as found proved could amount to serious professional misconduct. It went on to consider and determine whether under Rule 29.1 of the General Medical Council Preliminary Proceedings Committee and Professional Conduct Committee Procedure Rules Order of Council 1988, the facts as admitted or found proved do amount to serious professional misconduct, and if so, what, if any, sanction it should impose. It has accepted the legal assessor's advice in full as to the approach to be taken in this case, and has looked at each doctor's case separately, but when considering whether Dr. Wakefield is guilty of serious professional misconduct, it has looked at the heads of charge found proved against him as a whole. It has not confined its consideration to the heads of charge. It has also had regard to the evidence that has been adduced and submissions made by Ms. Smith on the behalf of the General Medical Council. On the behalf of Dr. Wakefield, no evidence has been adduced and no arguments or pleas in mitigation have been addressed to the panel at this stage of the proceedings. In fact, Mr. Coonan specifically submitted, "We call no evidence and we make no substantive submissions on the behalf of Dr. Wakefield at this stage. I am instructed to make no further observations in this case." Nothing to say, Andrew? After starting up this shitstorm, after putting public health literally at the worst level of risk it has seen in over a century, nothing to say? Seriously? Not even during your own professional misconduct hearing? Interesting. Let's continue to go on here. Nevertheless, the panel considered the totality of the evidence in Dr. Wakefield's case, including reference stated to October the 27th, 1995, from Professor Leon Fine, the then head of the Department of Medicine at the Royal Free Hospital, when reaching its decision at this stage, having been asked to consider that as part of Mr. Coonan's submissions at stage 1. Serious professional misconduct has no specific definition, but in the Roy Lance versus General Medical Council 1999, Lloyd's Rep Med 139 at 149, Lord Clyde, in giving the reasons of the Privy Council, said, "Misconduct is a word of general effect involving some act or omission which falls short of what would be proper in the circumstances. The standard of propriety may often be found by reference to the rules and standards ordinarily required by a medical practitioner in particular circumstances." Lord Clyde went on to say, "The misconduct is qualified in two respects. First, it is qualified by the word professional, which links the misconduct to the profession of medicine. Secondly, the misconduct is qualified by the word serious. It is not any professional misconduct which will qualify. The professional misconduct must be serious. In other words, the misconduct that they found in the conducting of this particular study was found to be heinous enough that they felt the need that it needed to be sanctioned due to professional misconduct. Crazy, right? Who saw that coming? I did. Saying. The panel has acted as an independent and impartial tribunal and exercised its own judgment on these matters. So before anybody starts with the whole big pharma, big pharma, big pharma, big pharma, spare me. Big pharma does not have a monopoly in regards to the art of grifting. In fact, ever since that study came out, there has been massive, let's just put it this way, for snake oil salesmen, business is booming in regards to so-called fake cures for us autistic folks. There are families that have lost thousands of dollars, people who have engaged in extremely dangerous medical procedures which are meant for very specific diagnoses and should not be used on perfectly healthy children who just happen to be autistic. It gets pretty dark, but let me go ahead and continue on with this. It has borne in mind the relevant GMC guidance at the time, namely the 1995 Good Medical Practice, and insofar as the findings relate to the events after 1998, the 1998 Good Medical Practice. And it has considered what has been adduced and submitted on the behalf of the doctors about the standards and procedures which were prevalent at the time. In considering Dr. Wakefield's case, the panel has also taken into account passage of time before these matters were brought before it, and the length of time this case has taken. It noted that multiple sittings were for a variety of reasons, including professional commitments of the panel and requests from the council for reasons such as illnesses, accidents, unavailability of witnesses, and preparation time. The panel has noted Dr. Wakefield's previous good character and taken into account everything it has heard, including his qualifications, experience, and standing with the profession, with patients and the parents of patients. At the same time, Dr. Wakefield was not qualified whatsoever in any way, shape, or form to make any type of determinations, diagnostically speaking, in regards to us autistic people. He was not a neurologist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist. He had very specific training that literally had to do with specifically those folks with bowel issues. That was his specialty. Such an individual like that has absolutely no business whatsoever conducting a study in regards to individuals who are possibly autistic, because that is not his area of expertise. That would be along the lines of, since I have worked in the service system, I should be able to work as and be treated as and given the proper title of, Dr. Tiffany, the psychologist who specializes with individuals through late teens to adult age, people with developmental disabilities. You want to know why I can't do that, folks? Because I never went to medical school. Although I have massive and extensive experience in regards to the service system and in regards to overall treatment programs, and in particular how that is utilized within the service system to help assist make things as community-based and smooth as humanly possible, that does not equal a doctorate. Okay? So, in spite of all my experience, I would not be able to act like a clinical diagnostician to be able to determine if an individual has one diagnosis or another. Right? So Dr. Andrew Wakefield was a specialist specifically on bowels and digestion, right? That's his specialty. That's what I would expect a doctor like that to have deep knowledge and experience on. For a doctor that specializes specifically in that area and has most of the letters behind his name in regards to that area, that is not going to be the doctor that I am going to go to with in regards to anything that has to do with an autism diagnosis. You go to a clinical diagnostician and you go through the eval. Okay? In my case, clinical diagnostician, to be followed by a neurologist, psychiatrist, psychologist, a full functional behavioral assessment. Then, after it was determined that I qualified to get in, did I get a proper CI, community integrator, someone that would come out once a week and help me learn life skills and all of that. You see where we're going here, right? Why are we allowing this dude who has a very specific specialty that has absolutely nothing to do with diagnosing anyone or has anything to do whatsoever at all in regards to someone who is autistic, except that maybe, as there's a lot of us, there might be an individual who's autistic who comes in with bowel issues once in a while because we're human, and just like neurotypical humans, we sometimes get stomach issues. Someone like that, I could see them as maybe being a part of a clinical study, because they were trying to pull the leaky gut thing. But why was he the lead? That's the part that's never really made a whole lot of sense to me. Let me go ahead and continue to read here. In considering Dr. Wakefield's case, the panel has also taken into account the passage of time, which we just talked about. The panel has noted... Oh, we went over that too, sorry. Long day, folks. Long year, long decade. I feel like I age 100 years at the end of every single week ever since January. So, sorry about that. The panel considered the conduct of Dr. Wakefield list. He was registered as a medical practitioner and employed by the Royal Free Hospital Medical School in 1996 and 1997. Initially as a senior lecturer in the departments of medicine and histopathology. Later, from May 1st, 1997, he was a reader in the experimental gastroenterology and honorary consultant in experimental gastroenterology at the Royal Free Hospital. That's his area of expertise. So I ask again, why is he listed as a lead in regards to a clinical study that specifically has to do with individuals who may be autistic? That is not his area of specialties. If he were to be brought in on the side as a consultant to discuss the idea of autistics with stomach issues, that I could understand. But this is someone who was leading this particular clinical study who had absolutely zero experience in actually treating an individual who is autistic, let alone help define decide and come up with a proper treatment program, you get where I'm going, right? There's a lot of education when it comes to individuals who decide to go into become experts in regards to us neurodivergent folk. Dr. Andrew Wakefield did none of it. I could see him being a consultant if they were really pushing the leaky gut link in autism, but having him as one of the lead just has red flags all over the place. Let me continue. The panel has already found proof that Dr. Wakefield's honorary consultant appointment was subject to a stipulation that he would not have any involvement with the clinical management of patients. Okay. Thank you for answering my question, trusty piece of paper that is now online. Okay. So the whole idea, the whole belief was that he would not be interacting with the actual patients themselves. He wasn't seeing them on an individual basis, like come into his office, that sort of thing. On 5 occasions, child 2, 4, 5, 12, and 7, he ordered investigations on children when he had no pediatric qualifications and in contravention of the limitations on his appointment. You see, that's what I was going for. That's what I was going for. He is acting way out of the scope of his particular area of the profession of practicing medicine. He was going beyond his bounds. And it looks like nobody did anything about it until this happened with the GMC Council. That should have had multiple red flags. On 5 occasions, we already went over that. The panel considered this alone constituted a breach of trust of patients and employers alike. Interesting. Were the parents made aware that Dr. Andrew Wakefield was not a specialist in regards to autistic children? Were the parents ever informed that Dr. Andrew Wakefield did not have any pediatric qualifications? Did they know that his area of expertise has nothing to do whatsoever with individuals who have developmental disabilities, at least in the context in regards to this study? Just how much was left out of the knowledge of the parents that participated in that original study? Right? If you don't have pediatric qualifications and you never took those classes, you have no business taking on the responsibilities of an individual who would be a general practitioner. If you're an individual who specializes specifically in gastroenterology, you have no business being a lead on a study that has to do with autistic kids. Straight up. Straight up. And was Dr. Wakefield's qualifications made clear to the individual parents whose kids were participating in this study before the study began, while they were obtaining the parents' permission to include their children in on this study? Be interesting to find out, wouldn't it? Alright, we're going to go through this last page and then we're going to close out until next Friday. You know, if the world doesn't end. In February 1996, Dr. Wakefield agreed to act as an expert in respect of the MMR litigation, a relation to the Legal Aid Board, LAB, the panel found that Dr. Wakefield accepted monies totaling $50,000, and I don't know if that's quit or not, folks. I'll be honest, I'm not very familiar with UK currency. Even though I went there years ago, I had to have others, help me a lot in that area. Still want to go back. I can learn, damn it. Procured through BAR, the claimant's solicitor, to pursue research. A costing proposal had been submitted by Mr. Barr to the LAB containing detailed information provided by Dr. Wakefield, and Dr. Wakefield ought to have realized that Mr. Barr would submit it to the LAB. The costing proposal set out costs in respect of the investigation of 5 children. It covered each child's 4-night stay in the hospital with colonoscopy, MRI, and evoked potential studies. Dr. Wakefield admitted that the funding subsequently provided by the Legal Aid Board had not been needed for these items because these costs were borne by the National Health Service as the patients were being admitted as NHS patients. So where's the money? Where did that money go? Wouldn't you like to know where that money went? If I were a parent, my kid was in that study, and they're being said we actually didn't need it, the costs were already covered, but we're asking for the additional sums because why? Where's the money? Seriously. Grift that keeps grifting. The panel found that Dr. Wakefield had a duty to disclose this information to the Legal Aid Board via Mr. Barr. You're damn right he did. Where's the money? It was dishonest and misleading of him not to have done so. The panel concluded that his intention to mislead the Legal Aid Board was sufficient on its own to amount to serious professional misconduct. The panel also found in respect of $25,000 of LAB monies, Dr. Wakefield caused or permitted it to be used for purposes other than those for which he said it was needed and for which it had been granted. In doing so, he was in breach of his duties in relation to the managing of and accounting for funds. In September 1996, Dr. Wakefield made an application to the Ethical Practices Subcommittee of the Royal Free Hospital Ethics Committee, seeking approval for a research project involving 25 children. This was approved by the subcommittee as Project 172-96. He named himself as one of the 3 responsible consultants. Good God, an individual with no expertise in regards to autism whatsoever, but I'm going to name myself as one of the leads in a topic I know literally jack shit about. Holy hell. Thereby taking on the shared responsibility for the information given in support of his application, for ensuring that only children meeting the inclusion criteria would be admitted to the study, that conditions attached to the Ethics Committee approval would be complied with, and that the children would be treated in accordance with the terms of the approval given. In respect of Research and Ethics Committee approval, the panel had regard to particular ethical guiding principles with regard to conducting research on children. It rejected Dr. Wakefield's overall contention that Project 172-96 was never undertaken, that all the investigations carried out on the children were clinically indicated, and that the research elements of the project were covered by another ethics committee approval. Good God, he's just committing fraud all over the place. And where is that money? If he's getting money from all these different places in order to conduct a study that he didn't actually need, where's the money? Where'd it go? Did anybody ever find that out? I'm just saying. Yeah, that's a bit enough for now. We'll go in further into this document starting on next Friday with the Down the Rabbit Hole series. But we are going over this today because I wanted you guys to see exactly what he was receiving sanctions on and why. And when you read through this, it is extremely illuminating the multiple things that this doctor did wrong throughout the conduct of the entirety of the study, including misappropriating funds and, continuing to receive grant money for a clinical study he already had the money for, that was already going to be paying for everything. So, again, my question is, where is the money? My other question is, not all doctors are created, I don't want to say created equal, because that's not really true. It's just doctors have specialties, right? Kind of like what I was proving with my whole little point there. I know the service system, left, right, back, forward, and center. And I know enough about certain things to be kind of dangerous. But that doesn't give me the right to call myself Dr. Daniels. Especially since I've never attended medical school. Okay? Dr. Andrew Wakefield had a specialty that had absolutely nothing to do with treating individuals who have developmental disabilities. In particular, any children that have developmental delays. The reason why that's so damn important has to do with the very terminology they use in the anti-vax movement, regressive autism. Regressive autism is not an official term. It is not used in the medical model anywhere. It is terminology that is used in the anti-vax movement almost exclusively. But when you have an individual that specializes in a completely different area of medicine, how are we going to be able to trust that such an individual is going to be able to know the difference between true regression and a developmental delay? How is he even going to know what, when we're talking milestones in autistic kids? He's not going to. That's not his area of expertise. But we are allowing this individual to be one of the heads on a study in regards to kids who could be autistic, with gut issues, with an individual who does not have any specialty in regards to dealing with individuals who are developmentally disabled, people who have developmental delays, specifically has never treated any autistic child before, and apparently ignored very specific instructions that he was not to have any direct interaction with the children, let alone be making all these orders for all these different studies, because he doesn't have the qualifications to do so. Right? I mean, when you actually read through the truth, it just gets more and more fucked up the more that you read on it. Like, this whole thing is a fiasco. And how that was ever even thought of to be approved to go in the Lancet in the first place is absolutely mind-blowing. And imagine this level of mass incompetence spawning our modern anti-vax movement as we know it. revitalized by a study that is absolutely riddled with complete and utter incompetence. And that's just for starters. But here's the thing about people. People, God, this is going to sound horrible. We tend to have short attention spans these days because that's what our technology's really kind of trained us for. It's a quick glance and we go with what we see first, right? So if you saw this study first, MMR linked to autism and stomach issues, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is groundbreaking. When it turns out a story isn't true, there are discrepancies and multiple lies, and then you retract it, especially retracted as late as 2010. How many true believer individuals now in the anti-vax movement that first got into it back in 1998 after the publication of this study, about how many of them do you think actually read Brian Deere's expose on the entirety of that study? How many of them do you think are reading this in regards to the sanctions and disciplinary action being taken against the conductors of the study due to professional misconduct? You go with what you first see, right? Yeah, that's the problem. When you let out studies like this, when people snow others, the damage is already done before anything can be done to try to even mediate it, even out, at least slow down some of the damage. And especially when you're talking about such a long time period between 1998 and 2010, we're talking 11 years. 11 years before anything was done about it. And that's how you spawn a whole movement and individuals who are willing to believe things you know where I'm going with on that, right? Okay. My point is we can't just continue to live in this world as people who glance at headlines and just go with the first thing they see as truth. We gotta be slower in regards to forming our own opinions on matters. We need to do due diligence on our own time when we can, not to go searching for evidence that agrees with our already preconceived notions of what is true, but to be willing to open up, to quote one of Anne Rice's books, to be willing to truly ask is to open yourself to the whirlwind, right? To be able to be willing to look at things at a slower pace, doing it more objectively, refusing to allow yourself to form any type of opinion in regards to whatever particular subject you're deep diving into until you've been able to go through all the information for both sides. It's time consuming. But if we want to have any chance at all at bringing back sanity into this world, we've got to stop with the constant push of fast-paced everything. Want to know why the world's shorting out at the moment? Because this is where fast-paced gets us. This is where turning off your brains not questioning, and not just that, not taking the time to properly question things gets us. And even slowing things down now is not going to make the downhill slope we're going down be a little bit less. It's kind of too late for that. But if we can begin to slow things down now, maybe we can reel this knee-jerk, over-emotional reaction to everything down. Start helping ourselves relearn how to think critically again. On that note, we're going to go ahead and close out, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel, and the few we do get do tend to get removed from time to time. So if you could, folks, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and as always, folks, please don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time, and as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea absolutely do. Hope you have a good one. Now, excuse me, it is time for, I don't even know what silent movie I'm going to be watching tonight, but I'm going to choose one and, like, heat up some food and just sit in my pseudo-autistic bubble of nope for a while and decompressed from all the crazy that's going on in the world, because frankly, folks, you got to do that, especially as I've gotten older. No matter how bad the world is outside, you gotta decompress, you gotta take that moment, because if you don't, oh boy. Alright, bye-bye everyone, we'll see you next Friday. Bye-bye.